In general, it goes very, very well. Everyone takes me very well. But then she tells me, look, Jeremy, I'm a feminist. So if you don't shake hands with women, you don't shake hands with men. And that was a nightmare.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this new episode of Panim El Panim. Today we have Jeremie Berrebi with us. So you probably know him as a serial entrepreneur. He was one of the very first to get connected to the internet in 1994. At one point, he was the most active investor in the world. But yes, he's a regular on TV sets. This time, Jeremie promised us that it wouldn't be an interview like the others. He decided to open up to us in a completely different way. So I'm telling you right away, hold on tight. It's going to be intense. It's going to be unfiltered and really exciting. So let's get started right away with Jeremie Berrebi. Jeremie, welcome to Torah-Box.
Hello.
So let's get this straight. We're not cousins. We're not from the same family. We both go by BAB, but it's just a coincidence. Thank you for accepting the invitation. You've done a lot of interviews, but you promised us that this one would be different from the others. This is our 7th episode of Panim Panim. It's the new studios that are kind of being inaugurated with us. Do you know the show?
I watched 2 of them. I watched the one with Ephraim Sitruk and the one with Avram Kadosh. I loved the one with Avram Kadosh. First of all, because I love Avram Kadosh, but really all the anecdotes were amazing. Well, I don't know if I'm going to make it. We'll see about that. I've never been to the Amazon.
Yeah, but you have some stories, contemporary. Yesterday for now, we'll see, and we'll see. And in the Amazon, just a reminder to everyone that we're now on Spotify, so you can find these videos as a podcast. We'll obviously put the link in the description. Jeremie, for those who don't know you yet, let me quickly go over your background. You're a serial entrepreneur. You've invested in over 360 startups in 26 countries. You were among the first people in France to connect to the internet. In 1994, you were a journalist at 16. You created your first startup at 19. You even taught classes at the National Assembly. There are still plenty of things happening. You're among the top 10 high-tech investors in Europe, and you're recognized as one of the 40 most influential economic figures in France. Not bad. But today, you're also a Ben Torah. A Ben Torah is someone who studies the Torah. A big part of the day, we'll come back to that. So you're going to tell us your success story, your spiritual journey, your commitments in the world of the Torah and in the business world. And you're also going to share some incredible stories with personalities, even the most high-profile ones. But I would like us to start from the beginning. You're one of the pioneers of the internet, you tell us. Among the first 50 that were connected to the internet, it was in 1994. I don't think I even had a computer at home at that time.
I've had a computer since I was 8, so that was well before 94. In 1994, I don't know if I was among the first 50, but definitely among the first few hundred. The internet cost 80 francs an hour to connect, which is about 20 euros an hour. To see an image appear, you had to wait half an hour. And by chance, I, who have been a fan of technology up to today, haven't changed. I always wanted to know things in advance. I discovered in a magazine that actually came out twice, called Avenir, a few lines that talked about a network where you could talk to people from all over the world. So we could only talk. It was all text back then. Images were hardly used for that at all. And that's how I got connected. And the person I actually sent my first email to was the journalist who wrote the article. And one of the people I sent my first email to, one of the first emails, was Thierry Lhermitte, the actor Thierry Lhermitte, who was also a great innovator, who loves innovation, who loves tech. And there you go. I contacted him. We've remained very good friends up to today.
What was the difference with the Minitel? We knew about the Minitel back then. It was already a revolution in itself.
It's funny that you asked that question because I found myself in front of the French government, in front of French innovation agencies who asked me, what's the difference between your thing and the Minitel? So we're a few years later and you can see the difference. The Minitel was paid. It was charged by the hour. Back then, it was also charged by the hour and there were services, but the Minitel was in black and white. The Minitel was only text and it was mostly in French. So there were only Minitels in France. It was still an absolutely incredible innovation. France Télécom distributed computers all over France. It's absolutely huge. So we were really ahead of other countries. But the internet was international. The internet is international. The internet allows you to access information from all over the world. All kinds of information, innovations, software, a ton of things. And the Minitel was extremely closed off, and it was actually a cash machine for France Telecom, whereas the internet wasn't specifically designed to be a cash machine. It was really a new universe where we would be able to communicate with each other.
Today, you've become an influential person. You have 50,000 followers. I saw that on your LinkedIn account. When I say followers, I'm not talking about friends. I'm talking about big bosses,
Actually, I could have a lot more, but I'm not very active. I've taken quite a step back from social media. Clearly, I was on Facebook. I'd given up in 2012. I left Facebook. It was wasting too much of my time. I left Twitter a year ago. I have 30,000 followers. I haven't left LinkedIn because it's still a professional network. And I think I can do things. And actually on LinkedIn, I have a special status. I even signed a contract with them that makes me one of the top voices. So actually, when I post something, it's highlighted a bit automatically. Now, I could have a lot more. I don't take enough advantage of it because actually I'm going to give you a secret. The older I get, the more I realize that I know nothing. It's true that, in fact, all the foundations of my life, I was very confident when I was 18, 19, 20 years old. I thought I knew everything. I thought I knew what to do, where to go, and so on. Today, I actually realize that nothing is clear. I really struggle to post something while trying to look good, giving lessons and saying, this is how life should be. So actually, no, I'm still thinking, I'm still evolving. What we call a bit of wisdom, I think that's it. But that raises a lot of problems because when you're on LinkedIn and you could post things every day and announce a ton of stuff, in the end, you just can't do it because... So in the end, I'm not sure of myself, but it's still something quite impressive because it's not just 50,000 followers, it's ministers. I'm the one who opened Emmanuel Macron's LinkedIn account. LinkedIn called me saying that Emmanuel Macron wasn't the finance minister at the time. He was a candidate. And I'm told, Emmanuel doesn't want to open his account. His right-hand man doesn't want to open it. So I send a message to Emmanuel and we'll talk later about how I got to know Emmanuel Macron. And I tell him, look, this is TF1. It's the TF1 of the future. It's BFM business. You need to be there. So we exchanged a couple of emails and then he tells me, look, Jeremie, I'm on board. Kamel, who was his right-hand man at the time, tells me, go ahead, open the account with Jeremie. And that's how Emmanuel Macron got started. He has a few million people following him now.
How did it all start? Today we see who you are, what you represent, but how did it all start? What was your school journey like?
I am a young child from French Jewish schools. I studied at Riosef since kindergarten. In my sophomore year, I switched to Maimonides in Boulogne. I lived in the 19th arrondissement. My father was a shopkeeper, my mother a speech therapist. He worked a lot. I was very, very proud of my parents, and I still am. So I have a simple family. My father is a very simple person. He never tries to have more than what he has. Never. We want to buy him a birthday gift, but it's a nightmare. He doesn't want anything. So he's always happy with who he is. I think he's one of the richest in the world because they say that the rich person is the one who is content with what they have. And he's a great role model. For me, my parents are people who are content with what they have. And me, actually, I'm coming in, but I was a fan of technology. And when I discovered the internet in 1994, I discovered something new. And I was one of the first people who ran discussion forums on the internet. I was one of the first to write articles in computer magazines about the internet. And there, in fact, I get swept up by the internet wave, not because I'm a businessman. I don't think I am. I'm not someone who loves money for the sake of money. I like money because it's a tool to do a lot of things, but I'm not looking to have money just to have money. And actually, I get swept up by the internet wave and become a bit of the internet's mascot because at 18, I take my baccalaureate. At that time, I start writing a book a month before my exams, and I finish it the Friday just before the baccalaureate. You can imagine the craziness of it all. I take my baccalaureate, I pass it in the retake, and then I take a gap year. So I was 18, and until today, at 46, I've been on a gap year.
Oh, a gap year at 18, pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm taking a gap year. It's the dream of all the megalithics. No, because I actually didn't know what studies to pursue. For me, it was clear that I needed to study something. It's clear and straightforward. You need to study something, and there you go, like everyone else. And no, in the end, no. In the end, I had a few mentors around me who told me, Jeremie, you don't have to. Look, Bill Gates dropped out of school. Many entrepreneurs dropped out of their studies halfway. If now you have an opportunity, they're offering you jobs. I was offered a full-time job as a journalist. I was offered to be a business consultant to write more books. You're 18, you already have a job, you're really well paid, super well. People imagine millions. No, I was earning 15,000 francs a month, 20,000 francs a month, 3, 4, 5,000 euros. I was nothing. I was living at home. Magnificent, right? So I said, I'm going to take a year. And one great thing was that my parents trusted me. They always told me, we're with you, you choose, we trust you, we trust you. And they were right, because in the end, I did quite well. At 19, I started my first startup, and by 21, I had 40 employees.
Today, the world of entrepreneurs is really exciting. A show on M6 that's a hit called Who Wants to Be My Partner? Of course, number 2 today in the United States, Elon Musk, I believe he's the richest man in the world, if I'm not mistaken. We talk about him as a monster of innovation. Xavier Niel, whom you know well, fills the Olympia like a rock star today to give talks. And then on the internet, Anthony Bourbon, Eric Lachevêque, etc. They have huge audience ratings wherever they go. It's a topic that fascinates. How do you see yourself in that world?
I was the one who initiated that world. Modestly, I was one of the first entrepreneurs to talk about the new economy, to say that anyone can succeed, anyone can start their own business, anyone can build something huge, anyone can create a company internationally. I was the one who was a bit of the initiator. There were a few of us like that in the 2000s. And actually what we see today is almost the third generation of entrepreneurs. One of those who was with me back then was Maxime Mancini, who was also part of the show. So actually, for me, it's not about how I experience this. It's that I even teach my kids to be as entrepreneurial as possible. Okay, one of my daughters just opened a French pastry shop. I make sure that my kids definitely try to be as independent as possible and not just employees of a company relying on other people.
Yes, well, for me, actually, where I wanted to take you is this. We see you with a nice smile, always friendly, and we tend to have the image of an investor profile like Elon Musk. The kind of guy who's a bit cold, tough, who fires people for any reason. Maybe, I don't know how to express it, but how do you explain this paradox? Do you have to be tough to succeed in business, or can you be smiling and friendly?
I'm not a billionaire, and maybe I'm not a billionaire because I'm not tough. Maybe because when I want to fire someone, it makes me feel sick to my stomach, and I don't just fire them like in an instant without thinking about them. So actually, when we look at Elon Musk's life, I'm currently reading his biography, by the way, and I'm almost done with it. It's a messed up life. For me, it's a messed up life. I don't want to be like him. His innovations are huge, but he doesn't respect people. He has been married 4 times. He even has kids he can't even talk to. He can't even talk to them. For me, that's not the life I dream of. The life I want is to have harmony between my professional life, my personal life, and my Torah life, my spirituality. And all of that has to go together. So yes, that's why I'm not a billionaire. That's why I don't have a huge company. That's why today I don't manage thousands of people. Because indeed, I'm not the tough enough guy to do that. On the other hand, there are plenty of entrepreneurs who aren't tough people. There are people who are very kind and want to give, who want to build things and think about their employees, who think about their teams. So you don't have to be Elon Musk to build things. There's Elon Musk. There's Jeff Bezos too, who's a poor guy. Steve Jobs. They're all poor guys. They're very, very mean people who can fire someone in an instant, who can insult them, show a guy who's worked for months on something and tell him your thing is worthless. They'll tell you, yes, but it's for the good of the company and all that. Okay, fine. It's for the good of your company, but you're burning a McViff right in front of you. For me, it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit with my vision. It doesn't fit with the vision of the Torah either. We have to respect people, so I really don't want to be like them.
You've been around a lot of personalities, whether in the business world or in politics. What are the craziest things you've seen around you where you thought, this is really over the top? They've crossed a line.
I've lived with rich people, with billionaires. I've lived with showbiz stars. One day, I found myself at the casino with a star. I can say who it is, Jean-Luc Delarue, and he was betting. He had 50,000 euro chips that he was putting on numbers at the roulette, okay? And then he goes, oh, well, I lost. He must have lost, I don't know, 300,000 euros that night. They were 5,000s, 10,000s, and 50,000s. In the end, I say, but these people have nothing to do with their lives, you know? That is to say, when they win this money, they actually go and get high. They will go and throw their money in the casino. They will go cheat on their wives, not just once.
You once said, I'm the only man in my circle who doesn't cheat on his wife.
No, it's not me who says that. Actually, I had lunch with a friend who is one of the big bosses of the internet, one of the very top executives. And actually, we are a group, okay, of the big bosses of the internet. We're always together. And one day I'm having lunch with him and he says to me, Jeremie, you know, you're the only one who doesn't cheat on your wife. I said to him, are you kidding me or what? He says to me, what? I said to him, it's fine, not just once. And him. I said to him, but that's not possible. He says to me, no, you're the only one. He says to me, bravo, really? I said to him, and you? Well, yeah. And actually, for me, I knew very well that I was the religious one of the group, okay? The one who has values, the one who won't pull any tricks, the one who will avoid lying, the one who will avoid cheating. The one who will avoid cheating is also cheating towards his wife, cheating towards his employees, cheating towards his children. For me, I don't live a double life. My life is completely transparent. No problem.
Were you a pioneer of the internet? You've always been one step ahead of what's coming out. Today, there's AI, artificial intelligence, that has arrived. It really scares people, just like it really scared people back then when the internet came. I'd like to know what you think about it. Aren't we at risk of losing control one day, like we've seen in some movies from our youth?
I'm going to say something anyway. Why am I always ahead? It's a bit crazy what I'm about to say, but you'll understand. Actually, I think life is short. I think I can leave tomorrow. I can leave in a week. I can leave in a month. And actually, I want to live life ahead of time. That way, I live more life. That's why I'm always ahead of things. And that's why I test everything. I test everything. I try to know all the time. I try to always be up to date. And I am up to date. Because when you're a shareholder in 300 companies, when you're in contact with vice presidents from Google and Facebook and vice presidents from a lot of big sites, well, you're aware of a lot of things that are happening that haven't been announced in the press yet. When it comes to artificial intelligence, it's the same feeling I had when it came out. It was the same feeling I had when I saw the internet. That is to say, it's incredible. Incredible. I didn't expect that at all. In the right sense of the term. Oh yeah, in the right sense of the term. So I'm going to say in the right sense of the term because I see everything in the right sense of the term. In fact, when a revolution happens, like the internet revolution, you see a revolution coming and you might think, oh wow, it's going to wipe out a lot of types of jobs. It's going to devastate a lot of types of businesses. Or you can say, look, there's a wave coming. I'm a surfer. I'm going to ride the wave. Okay. And that's how you have to approach it. Artificial intelligence, you have to see how I'm riding the wave. The wave is happening. So there's one thing that's a bit particular is that back in the days of the internet, there was
like little deep tech. There are things making...
No, here you're talking about the problems that can arise with artificial intelligence. Let's talk about artificial intelligence as such, as a tool that helps improve things. So actually, when you see there is something different compared to the early days of the internet. In the early days of the internet, there were small companies that started with not much and grew big. Today, we're talking about companies like OpenAI, Elon Musk's XAI, and Mistral and all that. Each company, okay, there's Charles Cantor, by the way, who's leading that. So actually, you can say, I'm going to raise hundreds of billions too, not much chance. Okay, you can do it, all right, anyone can do it, but it's tough. Or you can say, look, there are tools being created. How can I use these tools to improve either my current business or to start a new business? So that's how you should see things. You need to take this as an opportunity. You're a surfer, you ride the wave. And if you're there watching and saying, oh, the wave is dangerous, or the wave is dangerous, what's going to happen? At that moment, you've lost. Indeed, the wave will pass. You won't have caught it, and you'll regret it in 10 years.
Torah-Box, did you hear? They're developing videos of the week's AI updates. I don't know if you saw that.
I saw it. I saw it last week, by the way. It's really very nice. It's really, really nice. It's really beautiful. But as you were saying, there are still a lot of things are going to happen. Voices today are super easy to reproduce. So the scammers are going to take advantage of it. Images, you see an image, you'll never be able to tell if it's real. You're going to read a text. In the end, you're going to land on a website. Information on a shopping topic, for example, the best cameras, and you get in there and actually you'll see a ton of stuff. You think, oh, this is interesting, when in fact it was all generated by AI and people really don't care at all. And whether it's true or false, it doesn't change anything. The only goal was to do Google SEO. So basically, we still find ourselves in there are issues, but even back in the days of the internet, there were issues. There were frauds, there were credit card frauds, there were security issues, there were speed issues. There are always problems. So there you go. We need to be more careful. You have to live in the world, but you have to understand the world. Okay, it's very important to understand technology.
So are there any future technologies that worry you? Because I remember hearing a talk from you about the metaverses. You were talking about a truly virtual world that would completely detach us from reality.
Actually, it's not the future technologies that worry me. For me, it's the current technologies. Social media is terrible, okay? They waste people's time. For me, they steal people's lives. I give quite a few talks on the subject. For me, it's a topic I discuss in the reevaluation seminars. In schools, the Metas, Snap, TikTok, they all want to steal our lives because they want to sell our lives to advertisers. So clearly, I'm against it. So now, metaverse, what do they want for Facebook? Why did Facebook change its meta name? Because it's not enough for them to have us on our phones scrolling through news. They want us to be in a virtual world. That belongs to them, where we're there, turning our heads and seeing something and living inside their world. Google has launched a new system called Android XR, which allows glasses to have a screen on them. So While I'm looking at something, I can say, hey, translate this text for me, summarize this equation. It's for the baccalaureate. Summarize this exercise. We can do that. Today, they're a bit thick, but standard glasses will be coming out in the next few years. So basically, we're going to be constantly connected to Google, and Google will continue to control our lives. And that's actually what's dangerous. It's the fact that you should know that Google, for example, knows 100% of the places we go. If I have an Android phone, they know exactly which restaurant I've been to, which supermarket I visited, where my kids are at school because I go there every morning. They know absolutely everything. They know it and they don't hide it. They'll send you an email at the end of the Dubois saying, you've been to this place, you've been to such and such a country, you've been to such and such a thing. Actually, they show you this as a joke, but in reality, you realize it means they know everything. You don't need to tell them that you eat kosher because they know you only go into kosher restaurants. They see that you go to buy your yarmulkes at a super kosher place on Fridays. So, in fact, we have to realize that there are companies that still have a hold on us, that have a huge amount of information about us. And we have to tell ourselves that these are not our friends. These are not people who do this for our own good. They do this to better catch us, to better take our lives. That's why I don't have a smartphone. That's why I don't have social media. I don't have Facebook. I don't have Snap. I don't have any of that. To avoid getting caught up in it and being controlled by those companies.
I heard there was a company that, since you know all the technologies, you can tell me if it's true or not because it sounded pretty crazy. There's a company where you pay them 10,000 euros, or I think 50 euros a month, something like that. And at the time of a person's death, there's a company that comes, takes the body, and they freeze it until a new technology is invented to bring the person back to life. You know, is it a bit crazy or is it a real thing?
You should know that it's been around for 30 years. Crownix has been around for 30 years, and it's a dream, of course. There are rich people who do that. Well, I don't know about that company that does it for cheap, but of course. And the logic is interesting. You say, indeed, maybe we could wake up a person who has had a cardiac arrest or a brain death. But you see, all of this comes from people who don't have eternal life. We have eternal life. We actually don't need to be cryogenically frozen to come back in the future, whether it's in a few years, decades, or even hundreds of years. We don't know. But we don't need that. We'll come back anyway without paying the subscription.
Well done. So, Jeremie, you're a public figure, not just in the Jewish world, but also in the non-Jewish world. There are plenty of stories. And while preparing the show, there are a lot of stories we've seen online, and we wanted to check with you if they're true or not. We're going to give you these rumors, and you'll tell us if they're true or not. The first one is that you advised Emmanuel Macron and convinced some rabbis to vote for him back then. Is it true or not?
Well, it's half true, half false. The half that's true is that I advised Emmanuel Macron when he was the Minister of Finance. The day he announced that he wanted to launch his presidential campaign, he sent me an email. He told me, Jeremie, the horses are off, take your advice. But I never recommended voting for him. Okay, I never told the rabbis to vote for him. They came to see me because they knew I was close to him. But clearly, Emmanuel Macron and I don't think the same way on a lot of topics. I don't think we need to talk about it specifically. We don't have the same life. We don't have the same vision of family. We don't have the same vision of spirituality, obviously. We don't have the same vision on a lot of things, maybe a bit on business, but he's still a politician, someone who talks a lot and changes his mind, who says one thing and then the opposite. So actually, we were friends for a year and a half, 2 years, and then I cut ties. In fact, we cut ties ourselves when he became president. And I didn't want to get back in touch at all because we're not compatible. On the other hand, I didn't tell the rabbis to advise voting for him at all. They went to see Rav Kanievsky and said there's a Frenchman, Jeremie Berrebi, who knows Macron, so there's a reason to vote for him. Rav Kanievsky, make a blessing for Emmanuel Macron. The blessing was given, and everyone says it's Jeremie who went to see Rav Kanievsky, but I didn't go see Rav Kanievsky. Now, Emmanuel Macron was the least bad candidate at the time, maybe even today. I don't know. What's left?
What does it mean that you're close to Emmanuel Macron? How did you know him? Did you do business together?
We didn't do business together. Look, I was at a fair in Tel Aviv called DLD. It's the biggest high-tech fair in Israel. At that moment, a lot of people came up to me saying, Jeremie, you need to come. They're talking about you on stage. Actually, there was the big stage, the main podium, and over there was an investor named Yossi Vardi, who is one of the biggest business angels in Israel, and Emmanuel Macron, who was face-to-face with him. At the time, he was the Minister of Finance. And actually, Yossi Vardi said live in front of everyone, Emmanuel, do you know Jeremie Berrebi? And Emmanuel Macron says, I've heard of him, but I've never had the chance to meet him. So Yossi said, bring me Jeremie. Bring me Jeremie. I saw him. He's over there in the corner and everything. So I arrive. I find myself on stage. We talk, we have a bit of a conversation with the three of us like that. And then Emmanuel Macron comes down. He immediately addresses me informally. And he starts talking to me about my experience as an investor, how it went with Xavier Niel. I had already left Xavier Niel at that time. How we invest, how you see things. And we talked, we walked, and he keeps talking to me. He keeps talking to me, and I stay by his side, and it's interesting. Then we say, well, we'll see each other later. We were supposed to have lunch together at the French ambassador's residence in Israel. So we arrive at the ambassador's place, and they sit me next to him. So I'm there, he's there, and he starts eating while I don't eat anything. Why am I not eating anything? Because it's not kosher. So it was written, yes, kosher, kosher, kosher everywhere. But I know very well that it's not kosher. There's no reason for it to be kosher. So I tell Emmanuel Macron, he asks me, but why aren't you eating? So I tell him it's because it's not kosher. He says to me, look, it says kosher there. I call the chef. He calls the chef. First of all, he wasn't Jewish. If it's a non-Jew who cooks, it's already not kosher. You need to know these things. He calls the chef and says, I soak the dishes every morning in the sea. I say, okay, thank you very much. And I say, Emmanuel, that law to make it kosher doesn't exist, soaking the dishes in the sea? That doesn't exist. He says to me, but why are all those people with the kippah eating? I say, because they don't know. They don't know. So I don't eat either. He puts down his fork and starts talking to me. So there are 20, 30, 40 people around the table. And actually we were in a duo talking the whole time. We exchange our phone numbers. And he invites me to his place in Paris at the Ministry of Finance. In the end, we didn't manage to meet up. We talked on the phone and exchanged a lot of emails. We talked about several topics. There were 2 topics I advised him on. It was about tech, investment, entrepreneurship, how to actually transform the vision of France, and how to make sure that young people want to start their own businesses. And the religious topic, okay, which is another very, very important subject. And there you go. We talked about those topics.
Speaking of politics, the second point is that you were once offered to enter politics, but you declined. That's right.
It's one day I feel a call from someone called Avram Deri, who is the nephew of Aryeh Deri from hunting. He tells me, here it is, the religious party in Israel, the religious Sephardic party. And I'm being called like that. It must be. At 7 p.m. he tells me, well, Aryeh Deri wants you to be a member of parliament, Jesse. It's huge, but not just a member of parliament. Chas is 15th on the list. He wants you to be 5th, 6th, or 4th. You need to sit down with him and discuss all that. I told him, no, I'm not getting into politics. I don't do politics. For me, we are much more active when we are entrepreneurs, when we are in professional life, when we are doing things, private initiatives. It's much better than politics. But I hang up, and there I couldn't sleep all night. All night, I tossed and turned in my bed thinking maybe I should accept it. It's true that I would have influence there, perhaps not for my cave, not for my honor, because I do not seek honor. I had it at 20. I had tons of it. I'm not looking for honor anymore, but maybe that's where Hashem wants me to be. And then the next day, he calls me back. He tells me, look, Aryeh Deri, he absolutely wants you to be there. We need a strong French speaker. Look, it's important for the elections. I tell him, look, no, but I'm still going to consult with someone. And there I consult the mayor of Nebra, who is a friend. He tells me, Jeremie, it's just perfect for you. Accept it, Aryeh Deri. Besides, he's an extraordinary person. Go for it. Just go for it. And I meet one of my neighbors who lives on the same street as me, who is the son of a former deputy. So I go to see him and I tell him, here's what they're offering me. He tells me, look, Jeremie, my dad was a deputy. I love my father, but I didn't have a father. He tells me, no, one thing, if you accept to be a deputy, you're putting your family on hold. They'll manage on their own. They'll figure it out. We managed, my brothers and I, but you don't have a family anymore. And right there, when he told me that, it was almost like, forget it. He touched the place he shouldn't have touched. The place he shouldn't have touched. Just forget it. And then I also had my rock at Shiva who helped me, who told me, Jeremie, look, the media spends all their time trying to attack politicians. You need to avoid that. So we still had a meeting with Thierry Lhermitte where I found myself with all his advisors. And all that, he says in front of everyone. He says, look, he advised Emmanuel Macron, he doesn't want to join, hunting, all that. And I said, but look, I'm an investor. I've invested in companies. And so he tells me, share what you've done in your life. And I'm saying, there are his advisors who are like, he's right not to be a deputy. What he did is better. And they took someone who is Joseph Tayyip in his place. And for me, Joseph Tayyip is the deputy. He's more than the perfect deputy. He's an extraordinary man. He's a man of integrity. And thank God, I'm very, very happy I didn't accept it. And I'm really glad that it be Joseph Tayyip who is the deputy.
Is it true that M6 offered you to participate in the hit show on their channel? Do you want to be my partner?
No. That's not true. No, not that they wanted to partner with me, because actually it was back in 2020, the show. And at that time, I was already at Yeshiva. They offered me at the time to be part of Grain de Yosef, another show on M6. In the same style, a bit less showy. And actually, no, it's not for me, actually. All of that is not for me. And besides, I don't like to see an entrepreneur in front of me and tell them about their project. There's something that doesn't add up, etc. I receive the files, I explain to him, and I say, well, I want to invest. I don't want to invest, but I don't have to tear him apart in public, in front of millions of people. It's not a good format, you know?
I saw that one day there was an organizer from a very famous company in France, so we won't name it, to whom you had mentioned that you couldn't shake hands with women the next day.
It's the vice president of a big company.
It's the vice president, not the organizer.
From a company that has over 200,000 employees, a company that has over 200,000 employees in France. All the French are clients. I won't say more. And actually, I became an advisor to the president of that company and to the vice president of digital management. And before meeting her for the first time, I had to spend 2 days with them and meet the different departments of the company. I sent an email the day before, like I always do. I warn you, I don't shake hands with women. Other than that, I'm really nice. That's the formula I use. In general, it goes very, very well. Everyone gets along with me very well. But then she tells me, look, Jeremie, I'm a feminist. So if you don't shake hands with women, you don't shake hands with men. And that, well, was a nightmare. I accepted, but actually I shouldn't have accepted. And because I find myself facing a man. And they're like that. They don't know where to put themselves. I don't know where to put myself.
But what, a man who was shaking hands?
You were supposed to know, but in fact, they had all been warned. I don't shake hands, you know. I don't know what she told them, but it made things cold. The thing is, since they all knew me by reputation, and so in the end, apart from one or two, it went very, very well. But I was their advisor for years, actually.
But aside from your formula, how do you handle it? In general, this kind of problem of saying, ouch, don't shake my hand so I don't take it the wrong way. All the time, the formula, I give a heads up in advance when I know I'm going to meet someone.
Now, when I don't know, one day I found myself, I was at a trade show and two entrepreneurs came in with a model, a Swedish model, a real model, who was even recognized back home. And they come to see me and say, Jeremie, and actually, she was super impressed because, in fact, she was constantly touching everyone, hugging them. They were kissing each other, everyone, the guys, the men were doing that, and I was actually there, keeping my distance. And so it went very well. The only times I've had issues with women about this, it was with Jewish women. Jewish women, actually, who are not religious, don't accept that. They can get all worked up saying, yeah, that's extremist, blah, blah, blah. I say, look, this is how it is. I don't shake hands with women. Go ahead and shake hands with whoever you want, not me. When the corona hit, it was easy. We were all on Zoom, so it was easy.
We know that officially you don't have a smartphone. And when we say officially, it means you really don't have a smartphone. But no, we saw that actually we would have a secret, but really reserved for important people. Is it true?
No, a secret. Wait, what is a smartphone? Well, a smartphone, I have a phone running Android. It's a Xiaomi Kind Pro. I don't know what, F22. So it's running Android, and there are no social networks on it. There are no emails. There's no WhatsApp. There's no news. Okay. What does that mean? Actually, it's a service screen. It's really small. And inside, actually, I can order a taxi. I can say Google Maps. I can use Waze. About that, yeah. Or there's Seferia. There's Sparia too. Take photos. Exactly. There's Google Photos and there's Seferia. There's the thing about Torah. That's awesome. So I'm looking for a pass. I think so. There you go. That's what I have. And I'm very, very happy about that. I'm very happy. I think that's all we need to do. Remove social media from your smartphones. Even if someone wants to stay on Facebook, they can put it on their tablet at home and not be on it all day. We don't waste our life, our time on that.
Is it true that once you made a significant donation at a gala, but you didn't have the means at that time to pay for that donation?
It's not just once. It's happened many times. It's happened many times. That's my wife sending me a little text saying, well, it's okay. We'll tighten our belts. Go ahead. Give. It's okay. Look, what they're doing is really great. Look at that. Yeah. I've done it several times. There have even been times when I've borrowed money. I've never borrowed money for myself. Never, except for the mortgage on my house. But I've never borrowed money from someone else. And there actually, once I borrowed money to help a colleague. And there you go. I was very, very proud. In the end, it came back. Today, I'm going to be very clear. Today, a lot of people contact me thinking that I'm a billionaire because I've worked with billionaires. Today, I'm in Vrer. I study all day. I have less business. I earn my living properly to finance my life, etc. But I can't make 100,000 donations to everyone. It's not possible. That's the question. It's in high demand. It's never ending. It's never ending. It's every day. It's something new every day. It's not possible. How do you manage? I manage. I say no. I say that I can't. I say that I can't. You can't always say yes. And sometimes I do something symbolic, like 100 euros, but people are disappointed. People need to understand that, in fact, people like us are extremely in demand. We're in demand. We're also viable. You know, I raise donations myself for the neshama that I take care of. I raise donations for El Naftali, for the Kotel. I raise donations for families. We distribute them 500 shekels per family to hundreds of families. The day before Passover and the day before Rosh Hashanah every year. I sometimes raise donations for the soldiers. During the war, we organized an operation with nearly 500,000 shekels. We bought equipment for the soldiers, cameras, tents, a lot of extraordinary things. It was magnificent. But there are times when I go look for money elsewhere myself because I can't do everything on my own. So now, yes, I am a donor. I have some yeshivas. I have certain things, but actually, there's a limit. I have a big family. I need to help my children. My married children are still renting. They don't own a home yet. We need to help them.
Very well. You talked about Thierry Lhermitte, the actor, who was crazy about technology like you. Is it true that one day he came to your place to eat couscous with meatballs?
No, it wasn't Shabbat. It was during the week.
We eat couscous with meatballs?
No, it was for him. We did it for him.
Ah.
It was for him. There was him. We were three. There were three couples. There was a guy named Nicolas Gomes, who is also a great entrepreneur. One who was Xavier Shelbaum. He was Jacques Chirac's right-hand man. It wasn't the meal, but they were my friends. You know, they were my friends. And actually, we had a dinner at home.
Is it true that Google offered to buy one of your companies? Yes. You refused. And the next day, Google blocks you and your company collapses.
So Google offered to buy my company's Leo. Yeah, they offered me. By the way, on my blog, you can find the email they sent me. We set a price. And at that moment, I was asked to go through the Google recruitment interview because the goal was for me to join the team. And there, I totally nailed the interview. And they didn't tell me that I was nailing it that much. And actually, what happened was that internally, they said, we don't want Jeremie in Israel. We want him in Silicon Valley. So they come to see me. So there's a Passover in the middle. Right after Passover, we were supposed to sign and close. And after Passover, he tells me, Jeremie, we need 1 more month. And at that moment, I had an investor. At the same time, I had an investor who was waiting to invest in my company. The company was on the rise. I said, look, forget about Google. I'm going with the investor. I believe in the investor. And 4 months later, Google kills the company. Killing the company means that they dereference us. We had set up a service that allowed anyone to create online stores, even if they had nothing to sell. He was taking products from a bunch of catalogs from merchants, and he was creating stores. We had over 500,000 stores created, It was huge, but actually, Google was bothered that we were so present on Google. We were showing up too much in the search results. And there you go. But it still went pretty well. I mean, by the way, how did that story end? We tried to find solutions, but we didn't know that Google had intentionally cut us off manually. We found out later, we even met the people who did that. But actually, in the end, when the company wasn't doing very well, one day I have my investor who had come to see me in Ranana, who had come to the board meeting, and afterwards my non-Jewish investor. And after the meeting, I said to him, do you want me to take you to Jerusalem? Well, we can go to Jerusalem and everything. It's not very far from here. We're in Ranana. No, it's about an hour and a quarter drive, an hour and a half. Ah, yeah, it's been years since I've been to Jerusalem. He's Christian. And him, actually, so we go to Jerusalem, and when we get there, it's time for Mincha. So I arrive at the hotel, and I need to pray. If you want, you can pray too. He says to me, oh, okay. I'm right in the middle of Mincha, and he goes to the wall, puts his hand on it, puts on his cardboard kippah, and prays for a long time. Almost all the time I was doing Mincha, he was at the wall talking. We leave together, and when we were very close, I said to him, Macron, what did you ask for? And he says to me, I asked to find great investments in Israel. Okay. We're driving around the city, we take the car and we head out. We were supposed to have dinner together that evening. There, he gets a call from his friend, from his partner. He was at that moment in Spain on a Formula One circuit because they had bought Renault F1 a Formula One circuit because they had bought Renault F1. He was the first investor in Skype, that guy. And he says, look, I'm with an Israeli investor. He wants to sell his shares in a small company. Do you want to meet the founders tonight? So he says to me, Jeremie, you had planned for us to have dinner together tonight. I say, yes, but well, we spent the day together. Do what you want. He says, okay, let's meet tonight. I remember that moment for the rest of my life. 8 a.m., Hotel Daniel Herzliya. And so he says that he's going to meet the entrepreneurs. He invests in this small company. It's a company that helps people create websites. This company, after a few months, she wasn't doing very well. The biggest investor in the company didn't want to follow up. He invests $10 million for 20% of the company. That company is called Wix today. It was already called Wix back then. Wix is worth, I think, around 12, 15 billion. I didn't succeed today, but it's one of the biggest successes in Israel. Macron Toulouse, T-L-U-S-Z-C-Z. You can go see, he's the chairman of the company. He's the chairman of the board. And one day, someone told him, wait, you're from Luxembourg. There are plenty of Israeli investors looking for the best investments. How did you find Wix? He says, I was with my friend Jeremie praying at the hotel that day at the Western Wall. I think that's how it works in Israel. You need to know one thing, that in the story of King Solomon, when he built the temple, he specifically says, I want God, accept the prayers of non-Jews to glorify your name. So, in fact, a non-Jew who goes to pray at the kotel, I'm giving advice to those who are listening to us, has an even better chance of being heard. And there, I saw it with my own eyes, and he was heard.
Incredible. I'd like us to pause for a moment on a life choice you've made in recent years. People talk about you as a serial entrepreneur, an investor, but for the past few years, it's been in the study of the Torah. You invest a lot. You've gone from a few hours of study a day to a full day. I'd like to know, what is it? A typical day today for Jeremie Berrebi? And how did you get to that?
So what is it? A typical day is I wake up around 5:30. So I removed it from the day. In winter, that's easy. In summer, it's a bit less so. Then I have breakfast with my kids. Then I rest for about 15 minutes and I head to the yeshiva. I arrive at 9 a.m. and from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., I'm at the yeshiva. After that, I pray and then I walk. That's my only exercise for the day, unfortunately. I walk for half an hour from the yeshiva to my home. In the meantime, everyone knows it's the time to call me. All my partners, the people I work with.
We'll come back to that, perhaps. Let's see, when do I work?
In the end, how do I let myself go at that moment? Generally between 1:25 and 1:45.
For the notes?
You need to have my number on hand. That's true. And then I go home, I have lunch with my kids. Some have already finished, some haven't arrived yet. And then after that, I rest a little bit and I head out again. I go from 4 p.m. until 7 p.m., sometimes until 8 p.m. or even 9 p.m.
So you study all day. So what actually happened? Explain to us. Because you stopped the business.
Me already. First of all, we haven't talked, what have I done in my life? I created businesses, about 15 of them. I invested in companies. I founded the Kimmer Ventures Fund with Xavier Neal, where we invested in lots and lots of startups. So actually, I've seen tens of thousands of businesses. I experienced the lives of hundreds of businesses. I'm a co-founder of Litchi, for those who know about the crowdfunding platforms. I'm a co-founder of iAdvise, a live chat company. I'm a co-founder of Songpop, a game that we sold to Gameloft a few years ago. And actually, I've lived a lot. I've had a ton of activities. I've had a life that I call accelerated. I've also experienced the political world. I was very close to politicians, close to Emmanuel Macron, close to Jacques Chirac during his time, and then to Jean-Pierre Raffarin when he was prime minister, probe of the showbiz genre. And I reached 40 years old. I'm an advisor to a billionaire. And actually, I find myself on the board of a large investment fund, which had over 10 billion in the bank, 16 billion to be exact. And actually, we have a meeting. Around the table, there's about $50 billion in wealth. So how am I already? Well, I'm in London. I'm dressed like this. I'm dressed in black. I'm like this. I'm the Orthodox Jew of the group. And at one point, the head of the fund bangs on the table and says, we need more cash. We need more cash. We need more money, cash, more liquidity. So he has 16 billion in the bank. He has 16 billion in the bank. And I look at him like that. I look at him and I say, okay. And there, I finish the meeting. I'm stunned by what just happened. Because he says that, he turns red when he says it. I go out, I say, my God, I can't leave this job. They paid me very, very well. They had me doing business. I was the star. They sent me drivers, all that. But God, get me out of here. Get me out of here. I don't know how, but get me out of here. It's a crazy world. Why was I saying that? Because that same morning, at that time I was studying at 4:30 in the morning at college. I had a college from 4:30 to 7 where we prayed. In the middle, I was with 400 people in Bnei Brak, where I had 400 individuals who barely had enough to make it through the month. All with an incredible smile on their lips, all kindness, a goodness, an extraordinary happiness. And so I find myself face to face with people who are supposed to be the ones who have succeeded. That's how they get into Forbes. That's how they get into the challenge. And I find myself with these guys. They are still out there looking for money. So I finish up, and a week later, I get a phone call. The first phone call I get is from my wife. She says to me, Jeremie, my wife drives a small bus. We have a big family. And she tells me, we're on the highway. The car has broken down. I say, okay, I'm sorry. I don't know how to help you. My wife is better than me at mechanics. She could actually be a mechanic. I get a phone call from my friends at the investment fund in London who tell me, Jeremie, we have an internal reorganization. We're ending our contract. We're stopping everything. The fund, we're stopping investing this way. In fact, they were all getting fired, almost the whole crew that worked there. And we're ending our contract. And there I smile. I say, oh God, send a message. And I get an email from my other client at the time, my last remaining client, who starts getting angry with me. He thought I was hiding something from him about something, anything, but really something. And there I say to myself, okay, God, I got it. I'm going to study. At that moment, my son calls me. He was with my wife. He says, the car is going to start again. So the sign was that moment.
In the end, you helped him fix his car.
I helped fix the car. I made the right decision. She never had any more problems. You have to know about the car. And then I start looking for the place where I was going to study. And I found a yeshiva called Neti Vatolin. Or actually, here is Bnei Brak. It's a yeshiva for Baal, Teshuvah. So over there you have former singers from Tel Aviv, former soccer players, scientists, doctors, who have done Teshuvah generally several decades ago. And me, actually, I joined the program knowing that I've been studying for 20 years, the GMA and all that, and that I was even teaching GMA. But there, I went back in. I said I want to start from scratch because I've never been to yeshiva in my life, except now at 40 years old. So at 6 years old, I went full-time into yeshiva.
Did you do it at the expense of your job, or are you still working and you say, yes, and what actually is my job?
I've invested in a lot of companies. I'm a partner in many businesses, but I don't run any company myself. So in the end, either I spend my days making calls to my investments saying, how can I help you? I help with this, I help with that. I tell myself anyway, I'm not influencing that much. Even if I influence the company, but maybe something will happen. Something else that's going to mess it up. And then I said, I'll let you roll. I'll let you roll. They need me. The companies need me. They send me an email. They tell me, Jeremie, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? How do we do this? How do we do that? They count all the time. I can advise them.
So you have a lifestyle where you study from morning to night, and one of your companies needs you urgently in the middle of the day. How does she get in touch with you?
How do you manage? I'm not a shareholder in any ambulance company, no stock trading company. There's no rush. What I teach everyone is there's no rush. Emergencies don't exist. In fact, in the business world, we constantly put ourselves in a state of urgency. Elon Musk worked like that, by the way. There were always deadlines. You have to go faster. You have to do this, do that. There you go. But no, a company in general is not in a rush. You have to go fast. You have to run. No, but you can wait 3 to 4 hours for me to be available when, in fact, I cut myself off for 4 hours, 4 hours later, 5 hours later. It will be fine. That's it.
How many years have you been studying like this? 6 years. And did you set a time for how many years you would study? Or do you just think, no, but it's set to go on until I'm 120?
I don't set anything. For me, the greatest wealth is freedom. Thank you. That means I can do whatever I want. If now I want to go back to doing business, I will go do business. People need to want me after all. That I can still be a good investor and all, but still I think so, yeah. There are quite a few people pushing me to come back. A lot of people are getting back into businesses, reinvesting, setting up funds. For now, no. And so actually my freedom is being able to choose that. For now, I'm studying. I'm in the process of changing. It's possible I leave the yeshiva. I want to change my Maslow. I'm in the process of talking to quite a few people to help me make the right decisions so I can move on to the next step and go even faster in my studies.
Did you have any doubts when you made that choice, thinking, did I make a mistake? No doubts. No doubts?
No doubts, but I'm going to tell you something else. A few years ago, when I was working in Bnei Brak, I would walk past Kolet Lim, where I would hear people studying the buildings of the chain. And when I walked past that while I was coming back from work, I would start to cry. I would say to myself, I'm jealous. Why are they there? They're studying. They're having a blast. I love studying, really. I love it. It's the deepest part of my heart. And I would start to cry. And I had called my rabbis and I told them, I want to stop working. I want to stop working. I want to go study. They were telling me, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Several times they forbade me from doing that. So actually when the moment came, I had the study signs that we talked about, where I had the signs that were saying, wait, I'm losing my clients. The game allows for bigger clients. Right now I can go for it. And I actually have a bit of money saved up that allows me to do things. I went for it. And so in the end, it happened. Calmly. I was very, very calm.
There was never a job opportunity that told you, you know what, take a little break from work?
All the time.
Do you mean?
All the time. I have companies that want me to advise them, people who want me to start companies with them.
Is there any offer that you wouldn't refuse?
I refuse everything.
You got the idea, right? There are offers that are big.
But even the offers that are extravagant, I turn them down. Because, look, it's either you put the money as a goal or you put the money as a tool. Money. Thank God I have a little saved up. I can spend a few more years studying without worrying about it. So, thank God. Not everyone can afford that. Okay.
The question is, can everyone afford that?
Someone who can't afford to study and needs a share. NASA, he needs to go to a share of NASA. I had met several dolims. Abnei Brak, Rabbi Yehuda Shapirani, what did you tell me? Yehudits arrived by NASA. A Jew needs a share from NASA. You can't study all the time. Unless, of course, we have someone who decides to be a stay-at-home dad where his wife works and she has a good job and she can meet the family's needs. That's a different way of functioning. But someone who works and needs to work and has to pay their bills can't just say at some point, I'm giving up everything. I'm going to focus on the Torah and my wife and kids will eat bread and salt. That's not possible.
You walk a lot too. So that reminded me of a story. One day you called me the day before your son's Brit. You were planning to name him Joseph. That's why you called me to ask, is the name Joseph difficult to bear today?
And we called each other because I called you. I called you because actually I was planning to name him Yosef because it was the year of Rav Sitruk's passing. Rav Yosef Sitruk, he was someone I was close to. He was the one who married me. The child is born.
That's what I was going to say. Tell us what happened next.
No, but at the beginning, even before I called him, the child was born, and I have a voice in my head that tells me his name is not Yosef. And I said, well, we're going to name him Yosef. Every time I say we're going to name him Yosef, in my head, there's something telling me he's not named Yosef. And so it's crazy. And so I'm still the day before so I'm talking with my wife, and they tell me, of course, we're going to name him Yosef. Why wouldn't we call him that? Yosef, it's obvious. And the day before I said to him, but there's a problem. Maybe my Yosef isn't going to work. So I'm calling you Joseph Berrebi. I asked him, what do you think of your name? You answered me. You said, if I wasn't named Yosef, I would name my son Yosef. That's true. There you go. That's what you told me. I say, okay, thank you very much. I hold on and think to myself, what am I going to do? The next morning, the caterer arrives from Brit Mina. He's going to name him Yosef. Of course, he's going to name him Yosef. I said, no, I'm not feeling well. I'm going to see my wife. I say, Yosef, I'm still struggling. Stop. Just call him Yosef. It's obvious we should name him Yosef. And there, I arrive in front of the chair of Brit Mina. I even say to the Rav, to my Rav Gabison, who was the Mohel, who is one of my animated rabbis, who taught me a lot. And I said to him, Rav, I have a problem. I can't choose the name. I wanted to name him Yosef, but there's something that's holding me back. He tells me, it's the father who chooses the name. I'm not helping you. I can't tell you. And I actually see a lot of books around us called Oel Avram, Brite Avram. However, in Brit Mina, there are a lot of words, Avram around. And then when they say to me, Vekaresh et Mauvais Israel, I say Abraham. There, everyone is saying, Mazal Tov, Mazal Tov. They say to my wife, it's beautiful, Abraham. And one says, no. They said Abraham, Yisrael, Be'akov, but it's Yosef. And then he does, no, he said Abraham. And there, my wife comes to see me. There's a photo, by the way, where I'm like this thinking, what is she going to do to me? And there you go. I chose the name Abraham. It's crazy, really crazy. But for me, I couldn't name him Yosef. The next child, I named him Yosef. It turned out that he was born during the week of the Hilula of Rasitruk. Incredible. But here we are. The Harizal says that a child's name comes from above. It's a prophecy.
Today you study full-time, but did you go through a process of Shuva? Were you born into it?
Look, my parents weren't Shuma and Shabbat. Not because he didn't want to be, but because, that was his nose like that. The beauty is that they put me in a Jewish school. Okay, you should know that someone who puts their children in school, whether it's a Jewish school or not, it changes their whole life. I advise everyone to put their children in a Jewish school. So there's an organization called Choose Your Jewish School, which is extraordinary, by the way. That helps people a lot with that. And so they put me in school, Jewish. In fact, there I was taught the Torah. I was taught about Shabbat. So naturally, when my bar mitzvah came, I became a Shabbat observer. I was eating kosher. Everything was automatic. My bar mitzvah is here. I'm doing everything. My parents weren't following yet. My mom followed a few years later. My dad also followed a few years later. My brother, he was also in a Jewish school. And so in the end, I don't know. In fact, the day someone asked me, what is the day you did teshuvah? I said, yesterday. Just yesterday, I was making decisions. I keep doing teshuvah all the time. There wasn't a transition. It's true that when I got married, for example, it boosted my spiritual growth.
Did your wife play a role in your progress with Shuba?
My wife, of course, she played a role. My wife, in fact, she's my booster. That means that when I want to do something, I'm going to go study Torah. She's going to tell me, go for it, go for it. And she's going to tell me so clearly, probably like that it makes me feel good, saying, my wife is with me, everyone is with me, let's go. Even in my recipe, in the DACA that I was able to do for years, it's her who sends me a little text message on my phone when we're a guy there, something saying, Jamie, give, it's okay, we'll manage, we won't go on vacation. That's really how she lives, she's amazing. Look, for me, family is number one. Okay, let's say with the Torah, okay? But even as Rav Diamant, my Majagere says, he tells me, the day your wife needs you, you shut your mouth, okay? That's how it is. My family is number one. My family is what is my inheritance. It is what gives me pleasure. It is, in fact, what also tells me why I work. Why do I need Parnassa today? Why do I need to earn money? Why do I need even to study. Because when I study, for example, I think, well, I'm going to study because when I study with my son, I'm going to understand the sugya better. I'm going to know things better. So, in fact, my family is the heart of my life, and I make all my decisions based on my family. So, when someone wants to recruit me, they say, Daikwa, Jeremy, you're going to have to work in Paris or London or New York. You'll have to travel every 2 weeks. No, I won't travel every 2 weeks. I won't accept that. For me, family is number one. So, no, I won't do things like that. You should know that an investor generally travels a lot. Me, who used to invest in 1 to 2 startups a week, I should have been spending all my time on planes. But no, I preferred to be in front of my screen. I was getting a lot of files. I would meet up. I was doing Zoom calls back when it was Skype. Skype, all right, we're going to do a Zoom, Skype, and Skype with that. One day there's a friend sitting in a restaurant in Silicon Valley. He says to me, look, I'm at the restaurant. There are 2 tables next to me. Both of them say they talked to you yesterday. But have you ever been to Silicon Valley? I haven't set foot there. Until today, by the way. I've never set foot there. While I was one of the biggest investors in Silicon Valley, so now it's sure that I would have had better results if I went to the restaurant with them all the time, and that I went to their parties, and that, yes, that it has problems of alaha to go to their parties. At the restaurant, how I eat is expensive. So no, I did my thing. I do everything remotely, and that's enough for me. It works. Thank you. Goodbye.
How do you manage the education of the kids when you have a dad so invested in business and in the hustle? Do we push them more towards this or that? How do you manage?
Look, for me, actually, the most important thing is the Torah. Okay, so I tell my kids the ideal is the Torah. If you can be Tamidash Hamim, I'm talking to the boys, okay? Boys, if you can be Tamidash Hamim and study the Torah your whole life, be Tamidash Hamim, okay? Don't stress yourself out. No startup, no business, no stuff. We'll manage. I'll help you. We'll find a way. As for me, the Yavrechim around me, they all manage to have miracles. You will have miracles. The Torah is the most important. Now, not everyone is capable. Not everyone is made like that. Okay, so my eldest son studies part-time. He studies at Raf Pintois College. And the rest of the time, he studies as well, but he also has some activities with his wife, organizing events, weddings, and things like that. And so there you go. I have sons-in-law who study in college, and one son-in-law who is more of an engineer. So in the end, everyone will live the life they want, okay? But the Torah remains more important, meaning that it should be the center of our lives. The second thing that is more important is chesed. For me, it's very important that we are givers and not takers. In fact, in the world, there are 2 types of people. There are takers and givers. By the way, we were talking about Anthony Bourbon, who tells you, yes, but the kids, it's not enough fun to justify the time we spend on it. There you go, not enough fun. But that's a taker's mindset. It's a thought from someone who wants to receive something in return. For me, when I have children and when I raise my children, I don't want to receive anything in return. I want to give, just like for my wife. I'm not looking for anything. I don't expect anything from my wife. I want to give. I have a vessel to give. And someone who gives feels extremely good. And in fact, in the world, there are givers and takers. And I want to teach my children to be givers. And Baruch Hashem, it's working. All my kids, their thing is every day they come to me and say, wait, Dad, how many masks do I have left to tighten? How many masks do I have to tighten? How much can I give? Nations remain. There's a campaign going on. Can I give? I don't have any masks to tighten. Shoot, what am I going to do? Wait, I'm calling Grandma. She's going to give me a gift. That way I'll also have some masks to tighten to give. That's my greatest happiness. And there you go. It's the opposite of the business world where we're constantly thinking about ourselves.
So you're talking to me about the Torah, you're talking to me about Hesed, and that's a good transition to talk about Bnei Brak. When you made your Aliyah, you came to live in Ranada, in a villa, and after 2 years, you decided to leave the beautiful villa to go live in Bnei Brak.
After 3 to 4 years.
How do we go from this to that?
Look, I had a great villa. Back then, villas weren't expensive. It was the price of a 4-room apartment today, but it was a villa and the palm trees. Right in front of me, there was the head of Microsoft living there. But when I would leave my house on Shabbat, I would go to the synagogue. There wasn't a single neighbor on my street who went to the synagogue. They would clean the whole car. That was their job on Saturday, okay? They were all rich. They were all fancy. They clean their car. They polish it from every angle and in every way. What a messed up life. And also what I realized in Ranada is that in the end, I didn't come to Israel to find myself in a city that lives like a city of non-Jews, to find myself in a city that lives like the French or like Americans. I didn't come for that. I was very happy in France. I've never had a problem with anti-Semitism. I've never had a problem with I'm leaving France because I don't like France. No, I came to Israel because I love Israel, which is very different in mindset. And I arrived in Ranana too. Because I arrived in Anna because there was a French school where I could study the Torah. And for me, Bnei Brak was completely off the agenda. Not even in my dreams. I'm one of those black hat guys. And actually, while studying with the Rav Rechim and all that, I realized that they are the same. The one studying with the Rav in front of you is a man just like you. Very often he went to the same schools as you and did the same things. It's just that afterwards, he went to yeshiva, he studied more Torah. And at one point, I started going to Bnei Brak every day, studying with Rav Ruta in Bnei Brak early in the morning. And at one point, I told my wife, okay, but wait, we made our aliyah. Come on, let's go bring brake. What happened was that at the time, Google wanted to successfully buy my company, one of my companies, and I had put my house up for sale because I was supposed to move to Google Haifa. I was supposed to co-manage Google Haifa. In the end, the sale didn't go through. It's a long story. And the house was on the market. And at that moment, we found a house in Bnei Brak, and not everything happened at the right time because it's really, really hard to switch from one city to another because you have to find a buyer and a place to go at the same time. So it was very, very, very tough. Likewise, HM helped us. He sent us to a street that wasn't very religious on the border of Bnei Brak. I called Rav Dreyfus and he told me, look, that's the next neighborhood over there. I told him not long ago, he said, I don't remember. But anyway, he told me, that's the next neighborhood over there. Today, that's where one of the biggest subscribers of Bnei Brak lives. Rav Amfried Dan Gertler, who is one of the wealthiest people in Israel, and Tamir Raham, who studies all the time. And is a bit like me, actually. We are very, very close and lives right next to me. It's become a place with lots of spots and plenty of things. So we settled in Nimrak, and it's one of the best decisions we've made. Today, we don't think of any other city that could suit us besides Nimrak.
You once said a phrase that stuck with me. You said, Aliyah is not a finish line, but a starting line.
In fact, a lot of people think that when they make their Aliyah, that's it, I've won, all right, we're good. I've arrived, we're good. We unpack our bags, come on, what? Let's take a little trip to the beach, we're good. But actually, no. Aliyah is the beginning of everything. That's where you have to rebuild everything for your children's education. It's very, very hard to educate your children in Israel. That doesn't mean we can't, but it's a challenge, and we also need to fully commit and invest in it. Investing for your livelihood, investing for your spirituality, investing for your community. You have to invest in everything. So, which when we arrive in Israel, we have to say to ourselves, now we have work to do, now we have work to do. And way too many people arrive thinking, all right, it's fine. I'm just going to go to the Netanya boardwalk. I'm going to go to the cafe. I'm going to do this and that, and I'll take care of my kids. It's fine. They're in Israel. It's all good. We're among Jews. They put them in secular schools where they make them forget the Torah, where they make them hate the Torah. It's a disaster. So actually, no, Aliyah is a serious project, but it's a starting project. From there, now you rebuild everything and settle in Israel.
Every holiday eve, we receive the email from Jeremie Berrebi with the sheet that includes all the relevant laws for the holiday. In fact, this sheet is a translation of a sheet that exists in Hebrew from Rav Manfred that you mentioned. Can you tell us a few words about it?
So first of all, Rabban Manfred, as I mentioned, is a 42, 43-year-old Arab who knows the entire Torah, everything about everything, and he decided to highlight the topic of halakha norm in Bnei Brak. In fact, we study a lot of Gemara, a lot of Musa, a lot of different things, but in the end, halakha. He studied less in yeshivot, so he wanted to bring the topic of halakha back into the spotlight, so he distributes a sheet every week. For now, I only translate the ones for the holidays, which are very, very long. Sometimes it's about 10 pages. For me, sometimes it takes months of work to translate the one for Passover, the one for Sukkot, for example. And so we end up with all the halakha that concerns these holidays.
Speaking of spreading Torah, of course, I can't overlook this. I'd like to mention two quotes you made. The first one, you once said, if the internet was created for one thing, it's for Torah-Box. Or once you said, if I could have founded just one company and nothing else, it would be Torah-Box. What does Torah-Box mean to you today? What does it represent in terms of spreading Torah?
I'm a big fan. I'm a huge, huge fan of Torah-Box. I'm a big fan of the perseverance of Binyamin Benhamou and the team of people like you who have been around for a long time. I'm impressed by the kindness that surrounds this. So there are a lot of people who are going to start criticizing. But it's good. It makes Judaism known to people who didn't have access to it. And yes, indeed, I would have been very, very proud to have founded Torah-Box more than SpaceX or Tesla. Really. So I said it. Now here, I'm working on other topics. The topic actually of, if someone tells me, you were asking me the question, you didn't ask me, but I'm asking myself, okay, what moves me the most? What moves me the most is seeing a Jew who does teshuvah, a Jew who returns to the Torah and understands the Torah and says that he has discovered Hashem. For me, that makes me cry. Okay. It makes me cry. It warms my heart. So I actually focus on that. Torah-Box does this beautifully. I don't need to help them. I give Binyamin advice from time to time, and he takes it literally. For example, I'm the president of an association called OL Naftali, and I'm also the president of another association called Neshama, where we actually give scholarships to students every year to say, look, you study 80 hours of Torah in the year, and in exchange at the end of the year, you're going to receive about 4,000 shekels, a check for 4,000 shekels that will help you finance part of your studies. So we have young people coming in who know absolutely nothing about Judaism. Some know a little, some observe Shabbat, but most do not. And we teach them Judaism, we teach them the Torah. They come from the University of Netanya, Bar Ilan University, and Ariel University. And there you go. For me, it's an extraordinary project. There you go. Nechama is one of the most beautiful projects there is today in Israel. And it's very different from Torah-Box. With Torah-Box, we're there to tackle the masses. We're going to tackle each Nechama one by one. There's also an amazing thing I saw at Torah-Box one day. I was invited to a Torah-Box gala as the guest of honor. We traveled to Paris with Binyamin Benhamou. I was sitting next to him on the plane. And at one point, Binyamin claps his hands like this, saying, all right, let's get to work. What is he doing there? We're on the plane. He opens the overhead compartment, pulls out a big box, and inside there were lots of little Torah-Box books, and he starts handing one to each of the passengers. At that moment, I thought, wow, this is extraordinary. It was a book, by the way. I remember it was a book about positive influence, about seeing things in a good light. And there you go. It was extraordinary. And when I saw that, I thought, wow, it's not just the internet. It's not just little videos. It's a world in itself. And Binyamin is really like an angel. That will make him happy. He knows it. He knows what I think of him.
Jeremie, you're often invited on TV sets, of course, to talk about economics, business, and technology. But often you've seen yourself on TV sets defending the Orthodox world. Why am I telling you this? Because with Torah-Box, we made a documentary about the city of Bnei Brak. And I remember we got some pretty incredible feedback, meaning there are a lot of prejudices about the lives of Orthodox people in Israel, especially about the city of Bnei Brak, particularly during the Corona. People don't have all the information. That's a bit what you do when you go on TV sets to defend yourself. Don't you think that this world doesn't explain well what it does or what it doesn't want to do? And that's why there are those prejudices about them.
Absolutely. It's not that he doesn't know, it's that he doesn't explain himself. The Orthodox world is not on social media. I'm talking about the big Abanis. They're not on social media. They're not on TV sets. They're in the yeshivas. So they're there, and meanwhile, there's a storm behind them, and we're criticizing them. For me, I actually call it internal anti-Semitism. For me, there's actually a real internal anti-Semitism in Israel. The Jews I would call from Tel Aviv, who know nothing, and the Orthodox who don't understand us, they don't know what they want. They think they all live off other people's taxes, while they all have a share of Assad, and the donors for the yeshivas are generally abroad. It's not the Israelis who give. So there are a lot of prejudices, especially there are a lot of prejudices. There are many startups in Bnei Brak. There are computer schools. There's everything. There are businessmen. These are also the most well-known organizations. The largest aid organizations in Israel, Ezra Mitzion, Yad Sarah, which are used by all Israelis, not just the religious ones, are organizations from Bnei Brak. They are Orthodox organizations. Hatzalah, the rescue services, Yeredim. If someone has a flat tire, they call Yeredim. It's Orthodox people who created it. So actually, there is a huge contribution made by the Orthodox. There are a lot of benefits. We just live differently. We have just a different goal. For us, the priority is our family. Number one, our Torah and HM. So we really have that as a priority. So indeed, we can find ourselves facing people who don't understand. During the Corona, for me, what was unacceptable, that's why I was on TV sets. We were saying that the Nebrakis were not respecting the Corona rules. While in Tel Aviv, people were kissing in the street. There were no masks. Downstairs at the I-24 studio, I was on I-24 one day, I see. They were all without masks. They were all hugging, making out. And I'm being told during the studio, they say, yes, subscribe, that we don't follow the rules. But on set, we didn't have masks. I say, but why? They tell me, yes, but on TV sets, we are allowed not to wear a mask. So does it bother you that in a synagogue, we don't wear masks? There are a lot of things that have annoyed me. It really gets on my nerves. I take this very seriously. because it's such petty anti-Semitism that I just can't stand it.
For me, it's clear, it's stated, we're getting a bit towards the end. Already, in the interview, we mainly talked about two topics, business and the Torah. In 2019, you launched a concept called the Hidden Work Week. What did it consist of?
It's when you kick off a second week. Oh, I don't know when the show is going to air, but we're planning the next one. I had Binyamin Benhamou yesterday, by the way. I'm planning the next Hidden Work Week. So what is the concept? In fact, back then, at least in 2019, there were a lot of people with shady businesses where they were thieves, scammers, stealing from people from morning till night, Forex, fake insurances, solar panels, a bunch of stuff. They spent their time, and we said, yes, but there are rabbis who allow this, there are rabbis who allow that. When I did it, I contacted all the rabbis. I reached out to all of them, and I said, look, I want us to talk for all the rabbis to speak in the same week to say how it's not kosher. And we did it. It was a huge success, thank God. And since then, the people who are scammers no longer say that they do this and that it's kosher. I don't know if you realize, but today people don't say it's kosher. Just that we've evolved. Now, we need to put another layer on. Rabbi David Pinto is pushing me to revive this because people don't realize that there's a certain generation, a certain type of person who thinks that doing business is about how to trick the other person, how to get their money, instead of saying that business is about how I provide a service to the other person and in return I receive money. And so that's very important to me. For me, honesty and integrity in work are the keys to Judaism. We can see that in the prophet Jeremiah at the time of the destruction of the temple. That's what was reproached to the Jews. They reproach us for not respecting, for not being honest in business. So for us, it's like this. If we can bring back the Beit HaMikdash, we're told that if you have a shekel that you owe at the moment you leave this world, you'll be sent back in a Gilgul in the world. Reincarnation? Reincarnation. So I don't want to be reincarnated. I'm doing very well. I have a good life. Everything's fine. I hope to live until 120 years old. But you see, it's very, very serious to have debts, very serious to steal. There you go, but it's a God thing. We need to educate our children by teaching them to be people of integrity. Not a single cent. We don't steal a single cent.
We were just talking about your appearances on TV shows. You're someone who has never been ashamed to show your Judaism. That means it shows in your daily life, your way of dressing, your way of speaking. And I remember a story you told where you had an employee who came to complain about the mezuzahs you had hung up in the offices.
One day we put mezuzahs in my new offices. And so everyone arrives, the non-Jews come in kissing and saying, oh yes, I learned that this brings good luck. Oh, that's great. Oh, it's pretty. And one of the employees comes to me and says, yeah, Jeremie, we already have our offices on Rue du Sentier. It was the startup hub, Silicon Sentier. It wasn't called Silicon Sentier yet. We had Yahoo at number 8 and we were at number 20. We already have our offices on Sentier, and on top of that, what's this story? I said, yeah, you calm down. I'm at home here. This is my office. There's a mezuzah. Yeah, there are some grumblers. A few weeks later, someone calls me saying, look, he's trying to scam you. And by the way, I'm telling you some info. His name is an MMM. It's Rosenberg. In fact, he was Jewish himself, a shameful Jew. He was ashamed even when he saw a sign of Judaism. It annoyed him. In fact, that's very often the case. In fact, we see in the history of Judaism that very often it has been Jews who have been the greatest enemies of Jews. Shameful Jews like that. Jews who had abandoned their religion. Some had converted to Christianity. During the Inquisition, many of the people who did the most harm to Jews were unfortunately Jews. So there you go. It's always like that. We often have the reaction of the Jew that is more shocking than that of the...
We've talked a lot about investment, about business. And if today we wanted to ask you for advice on what to invest in, we hear a lot of things in the media, Bitcoin, etc. Do you have any advice?
First, an introduction. Investing in high tech is extremely risky. You have to know that we have a much higher chance of losing everything than of winning. You said I've had more failures than successes. Of course, in our portfolio, I've invested in hundreds of companies and 80% of them are worth zero. So you have to know that it's a huge risk. So someone who invests in a company and then complains because the company failed says you don't understand tech at all. That's the principle. The principle is that there are plenty of losers and a few winners. So that's the first thing. So you have to know that we invest in risk. So you shouldn't invest if you don't have a lot of money. All right. Okay, if you don't have extra money, you shouldn't invest your children's money that you've set aside. You put that in a savings account at X%. You don't invest that. That's one thing. Now, I have a friend who invested 15 years ago. He invested all the money from his son's bar mitzvah in Bitcoin. The son is worth a few tens of millions of euros today, but still, it was special, a good move, a good visionary. Now, for the companies, how do you select them? The first thing is to look at the market. Are you targeting a big market? Most French companies don't target big markets. They target a French market and a small piece of a small French market, okay? So it's important that these are international companies targeting big markets. I'm talking about markets in the billions that can potentially make $1 billion in revenue. Secondly, the team. Does the team know how to do what they want? Because if someone has an idea and says, I want to do SpaceX, and the guy doesn't even know how to screw in a light bulb, that's pointless. So you really need to realize that the people you have in front of you are people who know how to build this project from A to Z, and not just that you'll need to constantly help them by giving advice. And ideally, you want a system with recurring revenue. So basically, it's subscription systems, which means that you only have growth unless you have a big clash, but you only have growth. So in the end, you feel like the companies are making progress. There are a lot of sectors. You really need to know the sectors in which you invest well and realize that you can have the best entrepreneur in the world. Let's take Marc Simoncini, a great entrepreneur. He founded Mythic, and he also started eFrance, which was very expensive to set up. He just announced the liquidation of his last company, Angel, a bike company that was doing really well. There was a manufacturing problem with one of the bikes. The company is done for. Okay, it happens to everyone. The founders of Skype started a company called Skype. They sold it for billions. The next company was called Juste. Do you know Juste? You don't even remember it because it was TV on the internet. It was a TV channel system. They raised $100 million. They lost everything. The founders of Skype, yet they are great entrepreneurs. No, it takes a lot of luck. All the stars have to be aligned, as they say. At the same time, for it to work, you realize that it's extremely difficult. So even if you find the best idea, the thing that clearly seems like it's going to work, well, no, you don't really believe it's going to work. You take a risk. It's a bit like a lottery ticket.
Very well. Jeremie, we're coming to the end of the show. With your permission, I would like to bring up a very personal topic. You have gone through, like many people, challenges in life, but some challenges have been particularly unique. With your permission, I would like us to reveal 2 events that have happened. The first one is the birth of your son, Yitzhak, a child with Down syndrome.
Down syndrome? Yes.
Down syndrome? Yes. How did you experience that?
So look, we weren't expecting that at all.
Why would you want to talk about it today?
I'm going to talk about it. It's very important for me. We weren't expecting it at all. It's a surprise. We had a lot of kids before. Everything was fine. And the ultrasound, everything was good. So we don't do myosynthesis and all that in the world of Torah, and we don't do that. And so the child is born, and I see his eyes. I say, wow, there's something strange. I don't tell my wife, but I feel an atmosphere in the delivery room where the midwives in the end say Mazel Tov. They were a little bit more quiet there, and I very carefully hand the baby over to my wife, and she gently looks at him with a warm smile and says, do you see what I see? In fact, there were special eyes. Right away, we call a doctor, and the doctor comes and says to me, look, we'll see. There is something we'll see, but it's not sure, don't worry. He takes him into a room, I go with him, and he lifts the baby's arms, and the baby's head completely falls back. A baby should be able to hold its head up. That's one. The biggest signs of Down syndrome, they are very, very floppy at the beginning of their life. So I have that, and it was 7 a.m. My class is at 9, the Torah class. I tell my wife, look, we're not going to know. They're going to do tests and everything. Everything will be fine. Just relax. But there's an atmosphere. You can feel the stress. And I come out of there and I say, God, until today you have loved me and you love me. So if this gift means that you still love me, I will accept any decision. And I pray anyway, hoping it's not that I call a few rabbis so that there are some philosophers and all. I go to my class at 9 and I warn my rabbi. I tell him that maybe in the middle of the class I'll get a call. I'm called in the middle of the class. It's confirmed. So I arrive. My wife is in tears. And there we were lucky. And I arrive with a big smile. Everything is fine. Everything is fine. By the way, I had a friend who had a child with Down syndrome that I had seen a few days before. H&M had sent it. Super cute, etc. Well, he doesn't speak, the poor thing, even though he's 6, 7 years old. But super cute. I said, come on, welcome. And by the way, it's funny. This one is called Israk, but my wife had a fit of laughter 10 minutes before the birth with her mother, a huge laugh. And in my head, we're talking about prophecies, names. He's going to be called Israk. In fact, it's the perfect name for a child like that. He's one of those super smiley kids, super smiley, super endearing. So I accepted it with love. On the other hand, I had a lot of questions like, how do I tell the kids? What do I say to my parents, etc.? And it turned out that in the room next door, there was a rabbi named Rabbi Weber, who is the specialist on Down syndrome in the religious community. And he came to talk to us. He tells me, look, I know you have a lot of questions. I know them. I'll talk to you for an hour and you won't stop me. He explains to me, here's how you're going to tell your kids. Here's what you're going to say to your parents. Here's what it means. Here's what it means for the child. What's going to happen, blah, blah, blah. Wow, I have all the answers. And I come out of there and I say, we accept him. We announce the Brit Milah. I ask Rabbi David Pinto to be the Sandak. He accepts a huge Brit Milah. We did something huge, bigger than the others. And Baruch Hashem, I announced it when I sent out the invitation, by the way. You were one of the people I sent the invitation to. And at the bottom, I said we had a child, an exceptional boy, exceptional. I put a little star saying he has Down syndrome, but he fell into good hands. And that email really lifted the spirits of many parents who had gone through the same thing. Until today, for me, it's a gift. He's an extraordinary child. When I hold him in my arms, he immediately clings to me. He stays there. He can stay on me for a good 15 minutes. No child does that, okay? Right now, he doesn't walk. He's 2.5 years old, and he still doesn't walk. He pulls his hair. It's because of his brother. He tears it apart, the poor thing. But hey, we're trying something. But hey, in Israel, there are a lot of resources. There are the Amitiens who take care of it. He's in the Amitiens group. They take care of him. He's trying to learn to walk, trying to learn to talk. So you have to take this very, very, very seriously, this kind of thing. When a child like that is born, you have to say welcome. And there you go. I invite you to come visit Israel if you want to stop by. You'll understand the gift, just how funny it is.
Exactly. At Torah-Box, we are preparing a documentary on disability. And one of the people who is involved, who was filmed, told me that a non-Jewish psychologist had done a survey of Jewish mothers and non-Jewish mothers. That is to say, yeah, as soon as they came to Jewish mothers, they were asked, describe to me what you feel with this child who has this handicap. It doesn't matter whether it's Down syndrome or something else. And each Jewish mother said, it's a gift from heaven. They couldn't understand the concept of saying, how can you say it's a gift with everything that it entails? Like the commitment behind it.
It's unimaginable. Moreover, you discover a world of kindness, a world of support. Parents, associations that help. Something that you don't know. In fact, when you have normal children. And you discover this and you think, wow, it's beautiful. Really, and in Israel, it's the most developed country in terms of these kinds of things. So, thank God. There is a center called Shalva in Jerusalem as well that helps children like that, which is extraordinary. My wife went there every day for an extraordinary year. So much kindness, so many things. It's truly a gift. It changes the life of the household. And with the kids, we made sure to take it lightly. We have a child with Down syndrome. There's a girl who said, yeah, I love it. I have a child like that. Yeah, but there you go. And it went very well.
There's a second thing you wanted to share with your daughter, Sarah.
My daughter, Sarah, had the disease a few months ago. It was very tough. When we saw her, she started to swell. Her throat was swelling. And we all could see that from the outside. And the doctors kept saying, it's nothing. A doctor finally said, you will go to the ER now. You've got the unemployed person at the hospital. So they took a biopsy. This week for the biopsy, we're waiting for the results. It was the worst week of my life, I think. And there, in fact, you're very scared. You're very, very, very scared. And after a week, they found out she had the disease. But it's a disease that is treatable. So there's a treatment for that. Chemotherapy. And actually what I did, just like for Yitzhak, Hashem has loved me until now, even until now. In fact, Hashem loves us. And I made sure to pass that on to all our children and to Sarah herself. So in fact, Sarah was smiling throughout her treatment. Well, when she was on chemo, she was tired. Chemotherapy isn't easy. But in fact, she gave strength back to everyone around her. And thank God she continues to do that for these 2 years.
Good health pushing back HM before HM.
That's it, Rabat?
That's it, Rabat Trifka. Last question. With everything you've experienced, you said earlier at the beginning, at the start of the show, you mentioned, I've had an accelerated life. So you've lived through a lot of things. Do you have any remorse or regrets about the things you've done?
Regretting is really something that doesn't belong on my agenda. I definitely would have preferred to study in yeshiva earlier. I would have had a better level, but I wouldn't have had this journey. And this journey has made a lot of people do things. Never any regrets. The regret is that I can regret what I didn't do today. For example, today I wasted some time. I was too focused on my emails. Right now, I don't have enough time to read an article. I should have read that book more, but that's what I did today. There are regrets. No. There was a time I have a regret. Regrets. I was with all the biggest Israeli investors, and we were with the former head, I believe, of Shalva, who was there giving us a lecture. And at that moment, he tells us, look, did you see how Israel is protected? But in fact, it's the stars that help us. Look, Syria is at war and Egypt is at war. There were protests over there. Look at how all the countries around us are at war. Look how nice it is. The stars helped us. And at that moment, I wanted to speak up at that moment and say, but who are the stars? Because all the Israeli investors are atheists. Okay, there is no God for them. There is nothing, not all, let's say 80%. I was thinking, but who are you talking about? Who are the stars? Okay, what is it? And then at one point someone spoke to me, and unfortunately I didn't speak up. I didn't say that.
He's watching this video.
Until today, I think, damn, I could have sent it back to him right in the head.
Who are these stars? If we look at the show today, they know what you meant. Jeremie, what can we wish you for the future?
For the future, that I make the right decisions, that they are decisions that I take what HM expects from me. And there you go. It's not easy. You really have to listen to the signs carefully, not take them lightly. But thank God, I have rabbis who will help me make the right decisions, that I can live until 120 years old, because I have a lot of things to do, a lot with my kids too, with God's help. And well, we wish that for you.
If you want, with God's help, we thank you for coming today to Torah-Box. Thank you for watching this episode, which was a bit longer than usual, but it was really very, very full. If you liked it, feel free to let us know in the comments. Thank you. Goodbye.